Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sara Chana. I'm a master herbalist, a trained classical homeopath. Oh, I got to get out my homeopathic remedies. And I'm an international board certified lactation consultant. And we're talking tonight about, it's going to focus a little heavy on herbs because I'm an herbalist, but also I want to talk about knowing when to reach out to a certain practitioner. And I think it's really important to know that acupuncture is going to work for some things, homeopathy for other, and herbs and body work for others. And I think that people get very confused. And I think it's also important that if you're working with a practitioner and you're not getting the results you want, it doesn't mean that person's not a good practitioner. It just means that you may need another modality, right? Maybe you thought the craniosacral was going to work and you really need acupuncture. Maybe acupuncture really could work for another condition, but it's not working for this condition. So I want to bring that up all those topics. I'm going to grab my homeopathy so I don't forget. Oh God, did it fall out? Hold on one second, guys. Well, we'll find. It's got to be somewhere. I just want to make sure that we do the homeopathy. All right, we'll find it. Okay. Anyway, so I'm back. So I want to begin by talking about what is health. And health gets very confusing in the age of Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And what happens is a lot of women will do like a weekend on aromatherapy and they become an aromatherapist and they can, cure cancer and all these ailments that we have. And the answer is no, they can't. And then people will, go to 3 months of massage school and feel that they're experts, and that's not how it works. So good health means being comfortable in your body, right? Good health means not being constipated. Good health means being able to fall asleep in a timely manner. Good health means being able to wake up not feeling groggy. Good health means knowing when you're in a really horrible, crappy mood, to be able to express that and maybe take a break from what's going on. And it's not about, getting rid of your tummy fat in, 6 weeks on Instagram, or which mask am I putting on to make sure I have less wrinkles. That's health on the internet, but that's not how health really works. So I don't know if I told this story before, but you guys will like this one. If I'm repeating it, it's fine. So I was in homeopathic school and there was not a Jew to be found anywhere, for sure not. And there was this man teaching, he was European, and he said, let me explain to you why you all are becoming homeopaths. So he said that there's a maker up in the sky that drops a soul in a body. Did I give this example before? And he said the body becomes a vessel to take the soul on its life's journey. And as a homeopath, your job is simply to keep the vessel or the body intact, pain-free, so that the soul can do what it needs to in the world. And I was like blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, is this a Chassidus class? It was not anything I had learned about health growing up. And his whole lecture was that we have to go with the DNA of the person, the genetics of the person, the strength of the person, the structure of the person's body. Are they naturally thin? Are they struggling with their weight? Are they big? Can they move a box? Or are they someone that, you're going to ask them to just lift up some forks? Like, that's the extent of it. And also understanding their intellectual ability. Maybe there's someone that needs to understand it deeply. Or maybe when you're in the healing process, they really don't want to understand it because it'll just confuse them. So looking at your DNA genetics, what gifts you got from Hashem, what gifts you didn't get from Hashem, and really understanding what your end goal is for you. Like if you're working with a person that wants to, be a tennis star, a tennis champion, obviously staying fit, keeping her arm muscles up, making sure she stays focused, that's going to be her focus. And if someone else wants to just, raise kids, which is a big deal, you know, we need to make sure that they have the skills that they need. So that's what health is. So it's very interesting because my son, who's studying now to get his PhD in physics, I remember he called me up once. He was doing some research and he goes, "Ma, you're going to love what the future has to offer." And I was like, "Okay, what does it have to offer?" He goes, "Well, medicine is going to be individualized." He said, "That's what it's going to be down the line, instead of just giving everybody the same blood pressure medicine." And I looked at him and I said, "That's what herbalists and homeopaths have done for the past 25 years, meaning it's about making sure that you can be compliant, because a lot of women will come into me with a bag this big with 100 supplements and they like lay it out on the table. They're like, I don't even know where to begin anymore. You know what I mean? Like, is it the vitamins or is it the herbs? They get very lost. So you have to know, can the person you're working with or yourself, can you do one supplement a day for 8 weeks? Can you take on 3 supplements a day? So that's what health is. Again, I'm repeating, health is making sure that we can stay in a good mood. That's why I wrote the book Moodtopia. We can make sure that we have the strength to do what we need to through our day and try not to have aches and pains. Okay. So I want to talk about herbs because that is my specialty. And I wanted to show you guys some herbs. We'll pass it around. Have I passed around herbs to you guys before? So we're going to pass around some herbs. So basically, herbs grow all over the world, in every ecosystem, in every community. And each community throughout the world had their 10 to 25 herbs that all the midwives knew about. The midwives were the main practitioners. They were your pediatricians. And there were midwives and bone setters. Bone setters were people that would, if you broke your leg, they would set your bones. And then there were midwives. And then we also had males they were called witch doctors, or what are the other names of them? Throw out names, just healers that would, do some chants and put their hands on you. So every community had its healers, and most modalities around the world use herbs. I'd say, except for just those hands-on practitioners. So herbs grow wild. They come in all different colors. They come in blue, green, yellow, orange, pink. This is chamomile. Take it and pass it away around. I actually have a chamomile tea right with me. And let's see what else here. They also come in roots. So that was chamomile, which are little flowers. And these are roots of a plant. This is a ginseng. We'll pass that around. And here is another flower called chrysanthemum, which is used in Chinese medicine. So what's very interesting about plants is that we use the roots of some plants, the bark of other plants, the leaves of other plants, the flowers of other plants, and the seeds. So what's amazing is you can have one plant like dandelion. Dandelion grows everywhere. It's considered a weed. And dandelion is an invasive plant that people want to get rid of, basically. But for herbalists, it's like a dream come true. So the root of dandelion is used for any stones, kidney stones, bladder stones, any kind of stone that happens in the body. Also, it helps support the liver. If you take the leaves of dandelion, it's for water retention. Women that are in their 7th, 8th, or 9th month of pregnancy and they start to swell, dandelion leaf and capsules will be magical. Truly, you'll fall in love with plants. And the flowers of the dandelion, the little beautiful yellow flowers, if you infuse it in oil, it gets rid of like skin tags. If you have like these little skin tags as you age that you want to get rid of, or it's great for deep tissue massage if you have pain. So all you need to know about is one plant called dandelion, and you can heal. It's also for urinary tract infections, dandelion leaf. So I've got one plant and I could probably cure 15 things with it. So this is what herbalists have known for thousands of years, and this is what they've used for thousands of years. There's a great herbalist named Julia de Berkeley-Levy, a Jewish woman. I don't remember exactly. She lived in the early 1900s. She became a veterinarian before women were even allowed to go to school. She was the most amazing woman. And she actually was in Israel. This is a long time ago. She came from Europe originally, and she followed the Bedouins that would travel from place to place because they took care of their horses better than anybody else. Their horses, their coats were shiny, their hoofs stayed healthy, they didn't lose their teeth, and so she was a veterinarian. So what she did was she followed the Bedouins all over the Middle East, and she learned all their ways that they cured and treated people. Then she came back to America and she started teaching herbalists. And she was amazed that one field out in the middle of nowhere was literally a pharmacy. And it's funny because I'm living in Brooklyn, New York, Crown Heights, and when it's not snowy, I walk down to behind this high school. They have this track, and that's where I go and work out. And right by the track, there were 12 different medicinal plants in a plot of dirt about this big. So literally, if it wasn't Brooklyn, I could make 12 medicines within a matter of a couple days. It was mind-blowing what grows. So I was in Midtown Manhattan studying herbal medicine, and everybody there was from the suburbs. I was the only city lady. And my teacher said, if you want to heal a person, see what grows around their house. So I went up to her and I was like, really? I live in Brooklyn, New York. Have you been there? What grows around my house is I've got fire escapes made out of metal. I've got cars with gasoline in them. I've got concrete, and I've got like a lot of garbage. I'm like, well, really, what is going to heal my clients? Really? So she handed me a Peterson guide, which is a guide of plants. And she literally said to me, open your eyes. And the Rebbe had just said that. He was living with us at the time. I was like, okay, am I in Chassidus again? Because here I was becoming a homeopath, and they're like talking about the neshama. And she's like, just open your eyes. So I took the Peterson guide. I took one block from Empire, Albany, Montgomery down Troy. And I was young and dumb and new. And I found 10 medicinal herbs, powerful herbs like ginkgo, burdock, growing within 1 block radius. So it says that Hashem put the refuah in the world before the illness. And in the days of creation, he created plants and trees before man. And it says in Tehillim that Hashem gave grass for the cattle and herbs for the service of man. And the word there is service. So herbs are our gift from Hashem in order to enlighten, give us vibrance, give us a clear brain, help dispel different, I was going to say vapors because that's what they call them, but different moods. And we just know how to use them in our generation. So I have right here some rose petals. So all rose petals are edible. I wouldn't eat them from your florist, but all rose petals are edible. They're high in vitamin C, and in different wars throughout the world, soldiers were taught that if they ever saw roses to pick them, keep them in their pockets because you could pour water over them, cold even, and then you get vitamin C. So you can take roses and make them into a tea. You could literally get a jar like this, put in some rose petals. This is how this works. That's why I like this, if I can open it. It's got a little filter, very inexpensive. Have I showed you guys this before? On Amazon, it's like $10. It's got a filter. You can put in any herbs, any plants, any twigs, any leaves, pour boiling water over it, add honey if you want it sweet, and then this will stay throughout the entire day. It will. You can put a cloth around it, but if you want, you could fill it up this way with hot water, and then go ahead and add more hot water if you want to keep it warm. So this is great.
Versus like a tea bag or like the original form.
Good. I'm gonna answer that question. I'm gonna repeat it. So the question was, what's the difference between herbs in a tea bag versus fresh herbs? So here I've got some chamomile tea. Thank you, Michal.
Okay, well, I'll talk about like organic, like.
So I'm gonna. Right. So whenever you have tea in a tea bag. It's good. But the more you macerate and break down the plant, the more you lose the essential oils and the components of it, right? So if I'm going to take a chamomile in this form, the essential oils haven't been broken down yet. So I'm going to get a more powerful and medicinal. We consider most tea bags as flavoring the tea and, just changing the color of the water, whereas this is much more medicinal. So if you went and poured your boiling water over this and had this sit throughout the day, it would just continuously release its medicine throughout the day. And you'd get stronger and stronger medicine throughout the day, right? So it'll help you a little bit more. When you have something like a root, you really have to have it either sit in water for a longer time or put it in a tincture. So I wanted to show this because we were talking about roses for a minute, and then we'll go back because it's a great question. So you can get roses in rose water, and you can spray it on your face after a hard workout because rose helps balance the tissues, and it's also for broken blood vessels. So if you have any broken blood vessels on your face or on your legs, you can get a little rose essential oil, dilute it and massage it. And you can also get rose jam. And rose petal jam has been used for generations and generations. They literally take the petals, put it in a pot, add some sugar, boil it down, and you get rose jelly. So why am I mentioning that? Because roses are for broken hearts, really broken hearts. If you had a relationship with someone, you thought you were going to get married to them and it didn't work out in the end, or you had to move from one apartment to the other, or you lost a job, you could have a broken heart. So you can go ahead and speak to a therapist, which I suggest, for months. And you can intellectually understand, it was important I lost this job. It really wasn't the job for me. It opened up opportunities for me to work somewhere, but you still have this pain in your heart every time you think about it. So that's where a rose or a rose tea would benefit. So I'm going to jump and then come back to herbs because this is a great segue for me. Our bodies have tissue memory. And there's studies of people that were in the Holocaust, and they were young kids. This was one man that was studied. And one day he's sitting at a Shabbos table and there's a bang, 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 bang on the door. And the next thing he knows, his parents are taken away and he's never seen them again. So it's 40 years later. This man is married and has his own children. And every time he hears a bang on the door, his whole body crunches up, right? He intellectually knows that his parents are in Shemayim now, everything's fine. There's no more Nazis at that moment. He knows that. But his body is reacting in a way that is still creating trauma inside of him. So that's where body work comes in. So let's start. We've got herbs, and herbs can help with sinus infections, migraines, stomach aches, heart palpitations, varicose veins, constipation, seasonal allergies, eczema, psoriasis, and that's amazing. And herbs are amazing. But when we get these experiences that we feel deep in our body, that's when we're going to also want to work with a body worker. What does that mean? That means a craniosacral therapist or doing some Feldenkrais, because people can intellectually understand, okay, so my father wasn't the best father in the world. Okay, he had his own issues. All right, he was an alcoholic. He sometimes hit me when he got frustrated. But you still are suffering with migraines, right? So you can take herbs and herbs and herbs and herbs and herbs, and they can definitely lessen them. But sometimes you need to release that tissue memory. Does that make sense? So that's where body work comes in. You know, it was very interesting because I was working with a woman that had chronic headaches, back to headaches. And we were doing herbs, and herbs were helping. She wasn't getting her migraines so intense that she had to stop work, but they were still coming. So, of course, I always recommend that you speak to a therapist and figure out what's going on. And the herbs were dilating the vessel. She was getting more blood flow to her head. But there's all these muscles that go around our scalp and our head, come up our back, go into our head. And they had been tense for so many years that she went once a week for 6 weeks and got a head massage. It's called a Thai head massage. So she had already worked with a therapist to work out what was going on in her life. She was taking herbs. It was definitely lessening the headache. But it wasn't until she got this head massage, who thinks about it? It's not part of our American culture. And she stopped having headaches because the muscles had been very intense in her head, and they just needed another person's hands on them to relax them. So doing body work is not contraindicated with herbs, and herbs may put her on that path, but doing that body work is another very important thing. So I'm going to talk about tissue memory again. So how many people here know how to drive a car, right? So when we first learn how to drive a car, our hand is on the 10 and the 2. We're sitting up with a very straight back. Our mirrors are perfect, and we're concentrating on everything. Turn on your clicker. Make sure you slow down, right? Because you're learning that with your prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain, when you're learning a new skill. Then when you get comfortable with it, it kicks it back to the hippocampus and kind of stays there as a remembered memory. Is it going to sound right? So what happens now when you drive? You can drive from here to Muncie and go, oh my God, I'm here already? How did I get here? Or you drive from here to Manhattan, you're like, what street did I go down? And you put on your turn signals. You know, you did everything correct, but your brain was thinking of 100 things at the same time. But the back of your brain, the hippocampus, was making sure that you got there and made sure you stepped on the gas and the brake at the right time. So what happens is we make certain decisions, and it goes into the back part of our brain from childhood, from relationships, from parents, and then our body just reacts without the intellect there anymore because it's already made its decision that it's part of your life. And sometimes we need to get rid of that. And that's where craniosacral or Feldenkrais comes in. Is that making sense? So when you're looking at a problem like, let's say you're getting chronic UTIs, okay? I'm going to be really candid about this. You can't do a full Brazilian wax because you're going to be more open for UTIs because Hashem put pubic hair in that area. This is a big thing that is not discussed ever, okay, ever. And it's a fatty thing that from women are doing all over the world, and we have more UTIs than we had 15 years ago. So if that's the case, and you've got chronic UTIs, then you've got to grow your hair back. Let's be candid. We can be candid here, can't we? And then you're going to take some herbs to help get the bacteria out of the bladder infection. And I don't know that you need craniosacral work. I don't think so. I don't think you need acupuncture work, which we're going to talk about, because we've got a solution and it's going to work, right? Let's say you've got some neurological pain in your face. You had a bad root canal, right? You got a bad root canal and you have this radiating pain. The pain is radiating, and you've gone to the dentist 100 times and he says, well, the root canal looks good and I don't see inflammation, and you've taken a round of antibiotics and it's not better. Really, as an herbalist, I mean, I have some ideas. I could put you some packs, but that's a time that acupuncture is going to work. Acupuncture is phenomenal for neurological pain. And I've had a lot of clients that have come to me with chronic TMJ. That's not really TMJ, it's bad dental work. And they get acupuncture in this area and they feel much better. Neuralgia, yes, is that what you said?
No, what's the term used? Neurological.
Neurological.
What is the definition?
Like nerve endings. Like if you slam your finger in the door, you've got nerve ending pain. Or if you get sciatica when you're pregnant, your stomach gets very, very big. You put pressure on your sciatic nerve. That would be nerve pain. Headaches can be nerve pain also. So that's a time. I have a lot of clients that have what is called Bell's palsy. It happens to older people. We get younger people. That's when this one side of the face stops working. Oh my gosh, much more common. It's usually from a viral infection. And that's not a time to go to a craniosacral therapist. They're not going to help you. That's a time that you will benefit from acupuncture. So acupuncture believes, and I'm not a maven in acupuncture, but acupuncture believes that we have meridians, and those are lines of energy that goes through our body, and that our body needs to be fluid in order to stay healthy. So if you get a stuffy nose and you inhale, and kids don't know how to blow their nose, they just don't. Up until age 5, kids can't blow their nose. They don't have the stomach muscles to do it. That's why they get a lot of fluid in their ears, because they're always going, because they can't get it out. So it goes back in their body, right? You have adults that do it too, and they need to learn how to blow their nose. And what happens is if you get fluid in your sinuses for too long, you'll get an infection. It's called stagnant fluid in Chinese medicine. Kids that keep on inhaling their nose schnots, let's be honest, they'll get fluid in their ears, in their eustachian tubes, and they're going to get an ear infection, right? So acupuncture believes that you need to make sure that the fluids in your body are moving. So in Chinese medicine, if you're constipated, you're going to get a disease because it's dis-ease, and you can get some acupuncture to make sure that your stools are moving. So when you get stagnant energy, like a frozen shoulder, that's a great time to get acupuncture. I can give you herbs, and I'm an herbalist, I love herbs, but it's not going to go in and fix a frozen shoulder like acupuncture will. Because what happens is in acupuncture, these very nice Asian men or women, or Jewish men or women, who look innocent, they look like someone you can trust, right? They lay you on a table and you're all yummy, and they take a needle and stab you with a needle, and you go, ooh, and then they twist the needle and you go, ooh, it doesn't hurt, right? And what happens is blood flows to the area, and it starts healing the area because it has been invaded with a needle. That's really what happens. Then when they yank that needle out, the body goes, oh, Baruch Hashem, and all the blood goes away. I'm being dramatic. I love acupuncture.
You're just terrifying. I'm tired.
What I'm trying to show you with my drama is that what it really is doing is moving blood. Okay, so anybody out there, I'm just kidding. I like the drama. Really, they put needles in specific points, but when the skin is pricked, blood flow does go to the area. And I got a lot of acupuncture after COVID to recover. And when they take out needles, there will be some blood sometimes there. And it really doesn't hurt that badly. But the whole point of acupuncture is to move blood into an area to heal it and away from the area when the healing has been finished. And they believe that there are meridians that control our heartbeat, our liver function, our kidney function, and that's what our meridians are all about. So I don't think that acupuncture is a great idea, in my opinion, for children under 10 years old. I just don't. Kids have fear of needles. It's really hard to explain to them that it's going to be beneficial. You could go to a Chinese acupuncturist, and a lot of them will do acupressure, where they just put pressure on acupuncture points. But once a kid really gets 12 or 13, depending on what they're going through, you can usually explain to them that that is a good method, okay? So we spoke about craniosacral, where someone puts their hands on you and deals with old traumas or tissue memory that we want to change, because we all have a lot of tissue memory. I mean, a good tissue memory would be if you were a little kid and you put your hand by the stove and it was hot and you pulled your hand away. That's like an amazing message. It's don't touch a burning stove, right? It's really good. Or if you ran out into the street as a kid, God forbid, and someone put on their brakes and you hear it, and you were a little terrified, that's an amazing tissue memory. It will save your life the rest of the time. But if you were hurt by someone and they didn't even know they hurt you, and you got stomach pains from it, then that's not a really good tissue memory, and that's something we want to get rid of. Okay, so let's... Which one of the modalities would be best for emotional? Acupuncturists are going to like write things on the bottom of this YouTube saying Sara Chana is wrong. I would not refer one of my clients to an acupuncturist for emotional. I do it more for physical, maybe high blood pressure, maybe migraines. I would start with herbs and talk therapy, both together, because when you are given a psychotropic drug like Zoloft or Prozac or Wellbutrin or Klonopin, clinical studies show that if you're doing talk therapy at the same time, it will work better. And clinical studies show that talk therapy alone doesn't fix that much, except for problem solving. Like, my husband never takes out the garbage. There is a knife in my kitchen, and if he doesn't do it tomorrow morning, I'm stabbing him. Okay, that's dramatic again. Okay, let's do it this way. My husband doesn't take out the garbage, and it makes me feel not taken care of, right? And I'm really angry about it. And he doesn't get that I have a newborn and a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and that garbage is overpiling, and I need him just to take it out in the morning on the way to shul. So talking to a therapist with your husband is phenomenal. The therapist can explain why she needs the garbage taken out. Maybe he can explain his point of view, that he doesn't like to touch the garbage because he's going to daven, and then he has to wash Nagelwasser. You know, there could be two sides to the story, and a therapist is great at figuring that out, right? So even if I gave the woman an herb for a broken heart, it's not going to really help solve the problem, right? But if she's seeing a therapist and they're working out the problem, then giving an herb at the same time will help that. Does that make sense? She's feeling unwanted, unloved, has a broken heart. He's just trying to be frum and making sure that his hands are clean when he goes to daven, and you can work that out. So with herbal medicine and psychotropic drugs, talk therapy really helps a lot. But what we find is that talk therapy doesn't do what it's supposed to do, because she still may have a broken heart and she may still have a stomach ache. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but what about if it's like something like that's like genetic or like anything like mental, like let's say someone has, I don't know, someone has like depression, someone has, you know,
Right.
anxiety, like
So each person's individual, and we all have genetic propensities towards a lot of things. And the question is, what makes it come out, right? So I'm going to answer that question, but I want to tell you an interesting study. There was a study with 5 brothers. They weren't Jewish. They must have been Italian, because no one has 5 boys anymore, but us and the Italians, right? So their father had cardiovascular heart disease, and their grandfather had cardiovascular heart disease. So it was determined by blood tests that in their genetics, in their DNA, they had a propensity for cardiovascular heart disease. So what they did was they had 3 of the brothers eat better, exercise, and go to marriage counseling. And the other 2, they just left alone. And after 20 years, these 2 developed cardiovascular disease and these 3 didn't. So if it's in your genetic DNA, it doesn't mean that it has to actualize. It just may mean that you have to be more proactive, right? What does that mean? That means that you have 2 best friends. One can eat pizza and French fries and cookies and cakes every single day and never get heavy. And the other friend really has to watch her weight, right? So that means that she can't eat all those pizza and donuts or she will get heavy. So her challenge is she has to watch her weight, and she's got to make sure she doesn't get diabetes, right? So back to your question with emotional. I, as an herbalist, would say herbs are phenomenal. And I would say that, we discussed it, craniosacral, hands-on therapy together would be a great combination. Does that make sense? Because her tissue memory is the feeling of depression and anxiety. Her bodily responses, she needs some herbs for that. And talk therapy if she can afford all 3. It really depends. So here's another great point. The question about therapy is, what can you afford? What can you afford at this moment? And that's always going to get in the way of people's therapy. And that's why the more you understand about the difference between craniosacral, acupuncture, herbs, and now we're going to talk about homeopathy, the better equipped you are. But I believe that people that have a propensity towards depression, anxiety, sadness just have to work harder to feel sane and together. But I think it can be done in this lifetime because that just means it's their challenge. Yes.
Can I add something about craniosacral therapy?
Sure.
I found it also very good after car accidents or things like that. On the physical level,
Right.
for me personally, helped a lot with whiplash.
Yeah, for sure.
Accident. So just wanted to.
Yeah. So she just said that after a car accident, it was very important for her to get craniosacral, and it helped her recover. Right. The whiplash. Great. Huh?
Is there studies done that craniosacral is actually like scientifically like?
No. So here's the story. No, there are no studies. So let me explain, because I actually did my midterm papers on clinical double-blind studies. So real studies take millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. You have to recruit people. You have to be in touch with them consistently. You've got to make a spreadsheet. You've got to have a mathematician analyze the results. You have to follow them. Whenever you have 450 people that are in a study, we know there's a certain amount that are going to drop out, and we know there's a certain amount that are going to lie. Okay. So the truth is that the only way there's going to be clinical studies is if someone can make money. Okay. So that's why there's so many clinical studies on pharmaceuticals, because you can make billions of dollars. So I'm a lactation consultant, and I speak at conferences all over the country, all over America, also internationally. And I was at a conference right before COVID, and I've had 28 years of clinical study. So, I know breasts, I know babies, I've worked with over 30,000 women. So I started talking about my experiences. And one of the women who was running the conference said, well, where are the clinical studies? And I said, well, no one's doing them on this topic. So, well, then you can't discuss it if it's not documented. I said, well, I'm explaining how my practice works and what I've seen. She said, well, if there's no double-blind clinical study, you can't bring it up at my conference, right? So who's going to make money on craniosacral? Really? Do you know what I mean? You have a craniosacral school. People pay about $4,000 to get accredited. They charge maybe between $75 outside of New York to $125 here in the States. There's no studies on craniosacral. But if you speak to people that have experienced it, then you're going to understand how these things work. There's not even that many clinical studies on acupuncture. There's not that many clinical studies on herbs. Very interesting. Most of the research, Michal, you're going to love this, that's going on in herbal medicine right now is in Iran, because US made an embargo on pharmaceuticals. So all of a sudden in Iran, they didn't have a lot of pharmaceuticals. So they had to quickly figure out what the heck are they going to do with all these people? We don't have the pharmaceuticals. And I'm going to tell you another amazing story. So there are studies coming out of Iran right now. So everybody heard about what happened in Puerto Rico. What had happened in Puerto Rico? There was a flood. There was what happened there? It was terrible. Like 2 years ago, they still don't have electricity all over the place, right? What was it? Was it tornado, hurricane? Hurricane, right. What was it? The hurricane, right. So there was a horrible hurricane in Puerto Rico. Hotels were decimated, people's homes were decimated, and it was an impoverished country to begin with, and except for the coastline where they go to hotels, but impoverished country. So they have an organization called Doctors Without Borders, and Doctors Without Borders go into places after crises, and they try to help. They do stitches. So there's also an organization called Herbalists Without Borders. And there was a woman that went to Puerto Rico. And here were all these poor people that were diabetic. They were diabetic. They couldn't get their insulin. Here were all these people that had high blood pressure, couldn't get their medicine. Pharmacies were closed. So she had people send over bags and bags of herbs from all over the world. And she said it was astounding to see these people, it depends on how far the diabetes was, heal before her eyes. They were drinking teas. They were using tinctures. They were using berries. They were using twigs. Who's doing a clinical study on this? Do you think anybody, like who would go in and do a clinical study? So I just have to listen to, see that she's reliable and not trying to sell me Amway. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's not, on that one of those pyramid systems. And so I read all of her research and listened to her lecture, and it was fascinating. So we in America are very, I don't know what the word is, denied clinical studies on things that are really important to us, okay? That's our problem. So I want to jump to homeopathy, because homeopathy is another form of healing. We've discussed craniosacral, acupuncture, herbal medicine. We're kind of just touching on everything. Maybe down the line we can do an hour on herbs, but we're just touching different modalities. It's really interesting because, you know, if you have a kid with chronic ear infections, you're kind of in a bind. Like, do you do a homeopath? Do you go to an herbalist? Do you get acupressure? People are always very lost on where to go. So I'm just opening up some eyes. So this is homeopathy. And they're little pellets that you pour from the bottle into the cap. You take it from the cap. What remedy is this? You put it under your tongue. Excuse me. Let it dissolve. No eating or drinking 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after. So Hahnemann was a practitioner who lived at the same time as the Alter Rebbe. Actually, very interesting. In my opinion, the Alter Rebbe opened up the doors of Hasidus and allowed the common man to be able to get deeper Torah. That's the whole point of Tanya, taking very deep concepts and writing it in a way that everybody can understand it. So with homeopathy, that's what Samuel Hahnemann was trying to do. Samuel Hahnemann was trying to, thank you for joining us. Hahnemann would, his goal was to teach people how to heal themselves energetically. Hard. His philosophy was that if a person has a terrible fever, a child, and they're sweating and their heart is beating and pounding and they can't sleep because they have this fever, if you give them a plant like belladonna in diluted form, the two energies will collide and dissipate. So he felt that we're energetic beings and that the energy of a plant can heal us. The energy of a flower can heal us, and the energy of a poison can also heal us. So it's interesting because when the Yidden were complaining that the water was bitter, Moshe Rabbeinu took a bitter stick, put it in the bitter water, and the water became sweet. It's called like cures like. Bizarre. Bizarre. If you guys came over to my house and I gave you a cup of coffee and it was bitter, I wouldn't add more bitter to it. I go, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I'd add a little sugar, a little honey, maybe I'd add a little almond milk, right? I'm not going to add bitter. So it's called like cures like. The energy that can make you ill in diluted form can also heal you. So it's a very complicated science. Are there clinical studies on it? A little bit with arthritis. But what they did was they took a remedy called rust tox, which is made from poison ivy. And what they did was they gave it to 400 people with arthritis. And they found that a large percentage of them got better. Felt when they took the homeopathic remedy rust tox, when they woke up in the morning, they had less stiffness and it was easier for them to go throughout their day. But here's the thing I want to share with you. Each person that gets arthritis gets it in a very different way. One can have burning in their knees. One can have swelling in their knees. One can feel like there's pins and needles in their knees. One can feel that when they walk more, the pain goes away. And other arthritis people feel that when they walk more, the pain comes more. So when you're looking at a homeopathic remedy, each person might need a different energetic remedy, and it's not going to work the same on everybody. So here's an example. Let's say you have 5 kids. You go away to a Pesach program, because this happened, and everybody got E. coli from eating raw eggs. True confession, this happened. So you have 5 kids with E. coli, which causes diarrhea. We've spoken about so much tonight. Why not? So you got 5 kids. So one kid has running diarrhea all the time, liquid. The next kid is burning up with a fever every time he has diarrhea. Sorry to talk about diarrhea. The next kid has diarrhea and vomiting at the next time. And the other one has no diarrhea, but stomach cramping. Did I say 5? You see, the same E. coli bacteria will affect the 5 kids in a different way. So the 5 kids would need a different homeopathic remedy, because even though they have the same E. coli infection, the way it metabolizes or presents itself in the body is completely different. Even when we have chas v'shalom multiple sclerosis, there's a general term, but if you spoke to 5 people with multiple sclerosis, you'd almost think they were 5 different illnesses. Even people with eczema or kids with eczema, they can get eczema here, here, behind their ears and behind their knees. That's going to be the majority, let's say 75%. The next are going to get that cradle cap with the eczema around their eyes. The next one's just going to get a diaper rash. So my point is that doctors like to label diseases, and it's good because you can look them up on Google, and people go now to Google more than their doctors, right, to diagnose. But when you're working with a homeopath, we're looking for the specific uniqueness of your condition and trying to find a remedy that matches it, right? So back to depression or sadness. We have a depressed person that overeats and sleeps all the time. The next depressed person can't eat and is wired up and can't sleep. We have the next depressed person that becomes an overworker, an overachiever. They're working, because if they stop working, they have to deal with their depression. And we have the other depressed person that is like on the couch just watching Netflix over and over again, right? So when you give the title of depression, there are very different ways that it manifests itself. So when you work with a homeopath, what we do is we take your case. Taking your case means we spend an hour and a half to hear everything. What's going on? Do you like salty food or sweet food? Do you like hot drinks or cold drinks? Are you a night person? Are you a morning person? And then we have what is called a materia medica. It's our medical Lahavdil Bible, and it talks about all the different remedies. So we could give one person a remedy named sepia. Sepia are people that don't want to be around people when they're depressed, but they don't want to be alone in the house. They want to know that people are going to take care of them, but they don't want anybody to ask them what they want. They'll do the work they need to. They'll make dinner. They'll be involved, but they really don't want to talk about it. Then we have a depression with a homeopathic remedy called staphysagria. And these people are angry, and they're going to pick a fight with everybody they meet. I do that sometimes. You know, the guy that's giving you a ticket, the person at the bank, the person that's making you crazy. They want to pick a fight because that energy lets them feel less depressed, right? You have the next depressed person who's just timid and shy and lets anything happen to them. And so we would find a remedy, or let's say a depressed person that felt their life was going in one direction and it goes this way. There's a homeopathic remedy called Ignatia for that. So when and if you want to use homeopathy, you can get books on acute medicine, meaning you get your finger slammed in the door, use a homeopathic remedy called Hypericum. Your kid falls and bangs his head and he's got a big shiner over his head like this. You give him something called Arnica. You get a bee sting, it swells, you give a remedy called Apis. So there are about 25 to 30 remedies, and it's called a home kit, where you can buy a box like this. It's a home kit. You've got like 30 remedies. You buy a little book called like Acute Homeopathic Problems. And whenever little things come up, you'd be surprised how well homeopathy works. I had a client call me frantically. My office was, as usual, crazy. She goes, "Oh my God, do you have any arnica?" I'm like, "I don't know." "Why?" She said, "My kid just fell down the stairs and I'm on the way to my doctor. And my doctor said, give him arnica and come to me." I said, "I don't have arnica in the house. What's arnica?" Even doctors today know that arnica works well. So 2 of my kids were wrestling in the hallway, and one of them fell on my other son and broke his leg. So my son that broke my other son's leg came running to me. I pick up my son, who was heavy, and I'm giving him arnica. And I gave it to him every 15 minutes, and I get to the doctor. And he's really calm. So the doctor goes, "His leg can't be broken." I said, No. I gave him arnica. He has a broken leg. The doctor's like, if he had a broken leg, he would be hysterical. I said, he was hysterical. I gave him arnica. He almost didn't refer me to a doctor. So about 3 hours later, I was carrying my son out of the doctor's office with a big cast on his leg. He refused to walk on it. Anyways, so that's the effects of arnica. So that's arnica for acute. And you should have a box of remedies. If you get a bee, not a bee sting, but a mosquito bite, there's a homeopathic remedy called Ledum. So anybody that goes in upstate for the summers, you're going to for sure get one bee bite, one mosquito bite, a kid's going to fall, you're going to get another kid who gets his finger smashed in the door. Normal, oh, that's exactly what's normal. So that's acute homeopathic care. There are people in the neighborhood that have it. You can ask me. Yeah. So it depends. Like we get it from a pharmacy. They're okay. That's kind of like the Max Factor Revlon. I'd rather you do like the Estee Lauder Clinique. You know what I mean? And then for deep therapeutic, there are homeopathic remedies that can shift your energy. Okay. What does that mean? We talked about acupuncture, which will move the blood in your body, neurological pain, teeth ache, migraines, for sure. We talked about herbs that can soothe your heart pain. It can help with sinus infections, fluid in your ears, stomach aches, amazing. And homeopathy for acute, but if you're really suffering from depression, a homeopathic remedy can shift you so you can start to get the therapy you need. So I have a great story about homeopathy. I don't know if I've given it before. You'll tell me if I have. So I had a woman that came to me, and I was young and dumb, just finished homeopathic school. And she came to me. I speak about this in my book, Moodtopia, this specific story, because it is so amazing. She had been on psychotropic meds for years for depression. That's what she struggled with. And she took a homeopathic remedy, and I probably gave her too high of a dose. What did I know? I was working on it, although I had graduated school. And the next day she calls me, she's hysterically crying. She's like sobbing all day long. She couldn't stop crying. So I'm kind of nervous, and she calls me back like an hour or two later. This is when I could still pick up the phone. I don't pick up the phone anymore. And she said, I'm such a disaster. My husband has to come home from work. I hate your remedy. So my heart's palpitating. I'm losing my mind. Later in the day, she can't get out of bed. She's got the blankets pulled over her head, and that's it. I failed as a homeopath. So 6 weeks later, she's in my book. She's coming in for a follow-up. And I'm like, is she going to stab me? Is she going to sue me? What's going on? So she sits on the couch and she goes, I hate homeopathy. I'm like, okay, I get it. Why are you here? This was even before I was doing herbal medicine. I was a homeopath first. She goes, I got to tell you what happened over the next 6 weeks. I was like, okay. She goes, well, 2 days after that incident, I went into my boss that I had worked for 10 years, and I quit. And he said, you can't quit. And she said, I can quit. He said, well, what do you want? So she made a list of the 10 things she wanted. She had kids, and even if they had a sitter party, he wouldn't let her off. He made her work on a Friday. Even if Shabbos came in at 5, he'd make her work till 4. He was totally not compassionate about the fact that she was a wife and a mother, and he was mean to her. So she made a list of the 10 things, and she wanted a raise. Made a list for the 10 things, and he said, okay, he'll do them. She said about 3 days later, I went in and I took my kids out of the yeshiva they were in. She goes, I hated the yeshiva. My in-laws wanted them to go to this yeshiva. It wasn't a match for them. My husband wanted to go with his parents, and it was a terrible yeshiva for them, so she pulled him out. She goes, and the next week she goes, I went into my husband's savings account. I'm like, oh God, now I'm getting sued. She said, and I took first and last month's rent out, and I got us another apartment. She said, my husband was a yeshiva bacher. He was learning in Far Rockaway, but he was, from Michigan or somewhere. And his apartment was a bacher apartment. And they already had 2 kids. And it was not a place where she could raise a family. And it turned out that her husband had issues with change. And he would have lived there if there were 15 kids. So she looked at me and she said, how did I do that? So what the homeopathic remedy did was shifted her energy so she could become healthy. She couldn't get out of her depression or sadness if her kids were in the wrong school for them. There was no way. She couldn't get out of her depression and sadness if she was in an apartment that was not functioning now with 2 kids. And what was the last thing? Oh, and she couldn't be calm and positive if she felt like she was being abused at work. So that's the power of homeopathy. I have to give one more story. I had a girl that came to me. These were all when I was young and dumb, right? So the mother brought me this girl. She was 8 years old, and she had selective mutism. Selective mutism is when they will only talk to whoever they want. And this girl, 8 years old, had only ever spoken to her mother, not her father, not her siblings, not her teachers, only her mother. So she spent a lot of money on therapy, but the girl would sit here like this. She wouldn't say a word. So is the therapy going to help? No way. So I gave her a homeopathic remedy. She comes back 6 weeks later, and I look and I went, did I give her such a high remedy? I was like, oh my God, I have to go back to school. So I pull it together and I say to the mom, hi, how's it going? She goes, well, 3 weeks later, my daughter was in school and she went over to her mower and said, Connie and Sephora make me crazy every day. This teacher almost fainted, right? And she could now get therapy. Now this girl, she didn't need me anymore as a homeopath. I was done. I broke through that wall. She now needed play therapy, talk therapy, a social worker to figure out what happened to make her become selective mute. And I'm not saying that she just spoke to everybody when she walked down the street, but we broke through a wall. That's the power of homeopathy. I don't believe that acupuncture would do that. I don't believe that herbs would do it. It could be that craniosacral could, but you'd have to go to so many sessions. It would be like 10, 15, 20 sessions. And that's a lot of money. And really, I'm proud to say they paid me once. I gave them a remedy. It doesn't always happen like that. They broke through, and then it was like, goodbye, see you later. You don't need me anymore. Now get the therapy that you want. So if you have those kind of struggles, you need to work with a professional homeopath that goes to 5 years of school like me. But if your kid gets a bee bite, you can give them Apis. Does that make sense? Yes.
Do you always know which remedy to give, like based on the core cause of the problem?
So
Do you sometimes like switch it up, like start with something and then change it?
So the question was, so everyone can hear, do I always know the remedy that I'm going to give? And do I sometimes have to switch it up? So 9 out of 10 times, any homeopath, whether you come to Sara Chana or someone that charges you $1,000, we don't know. It's a little bit of shot in the dark, but I'm doing an educated shot in the dark. So in India, where homeopathy is the predominant medicine, you go to your MD and they have a homeopath working with them. It's normal. Like for an ear infection, the doctor would diagnose it. You'd go to the homeopath, you'd try some remedies. If it didn't work, then you'd go back and get an antibiotic. They don't give antibiotics right away. So in India, they say like this, your first visit, we get the history. My mother didn't love me. When I was 5 years old, I got a haircut. The bangs were so ugly, and my friend Janine teased me for a month, right? I hear the whole history, the story of what's going on. The second visit is where I start to get the deep emotions. And the third visit is when they start prescribing. They don't prescribe till the third visit. In America, we're stuck because in America, people don't have a lot of money and they come once or twice to a homeopath. So it's an educated guess, but I'll never know how you're going to react until you take that remedy. Does that make sense?
So with that woman, you got lucky with her daughter.
It was a very well-educated, lucky guess. Does that make sense? It was after 5 years of grueling school that I got it. Does that make sense? But maybe the next person, so funny. I had another kid come to me. This mother brought her kid from Williamsburg. She goes, I want those magical pills. I'm like, well, I'm not a Makubo. I can't really do magic. You know what I mean? Like, this is not magic. She goes, yeah. My neighbor had chronic strep. And once you gave pills and they never came back. Well, They were lucky. Hashem didn't want them to spend too much money with a homeopath. It turned out that this kid didn't have strep ear infections, and it was 4 visits before we started to get it going. Does that make sense? So I feel I did as good of a job as the first guy with strep and the ear infections. It just took longer for the kids to heal. So there is a childhood condition called molluscum. Molluscum is little warts that kids get. It's really epidemic in the frum world. Borough Park, Williamsburg, Crown Heights, Muncie, Monroe, Lakewood, everywhere. And it's an 18-month virus. Not dangerous. Sometimes the kids pick them and they get infected, but not dangerous. Very contagious, but yet if you have 8 kids in a family, maybe only 3 will get them. And it's an 18-month virus, according to scientists. When you take the right homeopathic remedy, they can be gone in 8 to 10 weeks. But every illness has a beginning, middle, and end. Even if you get strep throat and it's in your body, it's got a beginning, it peaks, and then it ends. The question is, can we make it shorter with herbs and homeopathy? Okay?
Can I submit some questions from the?
Of course you can.
Okay, so there was one about, what are your thoughts about emotion code biofeedback or / biofeedback?
Right. So I'm not so familiar with emotion code, but biofeedback is very successful with high blood pressure. And it depends of the age and the commitment of the person. It's not 1 or 2 visits. You have to commit to like 15, 20 visits. So that depends on the finances and what the package deal is. And I think biofeedback is a wonderful tool.
Perfect. Now, another one was, how do you know which homeopathic remedy would work? Is it trial and error? I think that was asked already.
Well, but I would say that you can get these pocket guides to homeopathy. There's a lot of good books. Dana Ullman has a great book, Ulman. And there are a lot of really good books out there that can guide you for acute bumps and bangs and little things that come up. But when it comes to big emotional, you really need to work with a homeopath. Make sense?
Yes. And then there was another one. Your thoughts on energy healing?
Okay, so I love energy healing. You have to find a good practitioner, and they're hard to find. There are people that can read your energy. There are people that are intuitive. There are people that read auras. I'm not one of them. I'm a practitioner that's like a very good student. I read the book. I take my tests. I look up words I don't know. I'm just kind of a book smart practitioner. True. But there are people that can feel things. I mean, it was very interesting because post-COVID, I did have COVID twice. We can open it up to some questions. And Michal gifted me a session with a massage therapist that also does cranial. And it was so bizarre because I went to her after my first COVID and she said, oh boy, we've got to work on the spleen. I'm like, I never think of my spleen. You don't wake up in the morning thinking of your spleen. You can think of your heart. You can think of your intestines. Like, really, the spleen? And I got better when I started going to her. And I went back to her this time. And she's like, oh, Sara Chana, it's all about the spleen again. And she doesn't tell everybody it's about the spleen. She picked up on where that was. So I ended up going to a doctor because I'm a little bit of a scientist. I'm like, check out my spleen. Check it out. So he checked it out and said, well, it's really okay. I was like, is it really okay? He goes, well, it's a little inflamed, but that could be normal post-COVID. I was like, she's right. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was amazing. So that's an energy healer. Does that make sense? Like, she doesn't have an x-ray machine. And if I went to get a sonogram of it, we would have seen it was a little inflamed. And once she shared with me what needed to be worked on as an herbalist, I could go get my spleen herbs and I could, do my other things. So energy healers are great if they're good. And how do you know they're good? It's really word of mouth. And you have to make sure that it's not just a fatty thing. Because we have in the frum communities, it's less now since COVID, but we would have all these people that would like read your palm. And they were like these big healers and people would like line up around the block and then we'd never see them again. Do you know what I'm saying? So one thing about a healer is, especially an energy healer, is you need to spend a couple sessions with them. Because even if they're intuitive and they shift energy, They may shift it too much to the right or too much to the left. So you have to be committed to go a couple times.
There was a question about, well, I guess on this same topic, but like in general, not just energy healer, how do we know how to find a good practitioner?
Well, you'd be surprised that outside the frum world, you can sometimes really trust Yelp reviews. I know that's crazy. So the first 10, 15 Yelp reviews are really going to be their friends. But when I have clients that call me out of town and I don't know if there's an acupuncturist, there's only so much they can repeat the same thing. I sometimes will call a lactation consultant in the area and say, who's a craniosacral person that you like? Word of mouth is really the best way to go. And I'm not kidding about those Yelp reviews, because if you hear like 15 really good ones and then all of a sudden there's 3 on the bottom, like the place was dirty and smelly, and so I would do that, and then I would just ask people in the area. It's hard.
Like I'm saying like social media, like Facebook groups, like
maybe
that's where I found like
maybe Facebook groups.
From like the groups, like if you're interested, that's what I'm from.
Yeah, that could be a good idea. I mean, what I try to do is find. I mean, if I have someone like in Atlanta, Georgia, that really needs an acupuncturist, I'll call the rabbi and the rebbitzin and other people in the community for them and say, hey, is there an acupuncturist that people are liking? Like acupuncturists and craniosacral and energy people that come and go are not people that you really could trust. You want someone that's, oh yeah, this guy's been in acupuncture, for the past 30 years. So if you're good and can maintain a practice for 30 years, it means that you're good. Does that make sense? It's a tricky one. It's hard. I wish we had a resource list.
There was a question if you could discuss a little bit more about headaches and migraine relief.
So each person's going to be individual. The question was headache and migraine relief. Everybody's headaches are different. We're going to have a hormonal headache. So you've got to balance their hormones. We're going to have a tension headache. We've got to release the tension and stress. You can have just a muscular headache, which we discussed with that Thai head massage. So you've got to figure out what kind of headache it is. And herbs really work. I would use herbs in tincture form. And I'm going to show you really quickly how you make a tincture. So you take a plant like this. This one's chamomile. You pour grain alcohol over it, and it sits in a glass jar for 6 to 8 weeks, and the alcohol breaks down the components of the plant. Then you strain it, and you put it in a glass bottle, and you get what is called a tincture. So this is a tincture. I'm going to show it to everybody. I hope you can see it. And you take a tincture, you take a little bit of water or juice, and you pick up the tincture and you shoot it in the cup, and then you down like vodka. So for migraines, I would definitely use herbal medicine. If you don't have an herbalist in the area, acupuncture can help with that. But I would also do head massage and talk therapy if you could. Headaches are tricky, but when we find what it's coming from, it's usually pretty easy to get to that cure.
How can people be in touch with you? How can they book? Do you do online?
I do Zoom. I do WhatsApp video. You can either find me through my website. Should I say it?
Yes.
It's sarachana.com without an H, SARACHANA.com, and there's a place to email me. You can also on Instagram, which I would love to talk about. I mean, I'm not as active as I want, but I'm Sara Chana SARACHANAS, and you can message me there. And twice a week, I try to put up a little 1-minute video where I talk about an herb. I'll say, this is what I use this herb for, and I'll show you the herb and I'll talk about it. I'm trying to educate people about herbal and homeopathic remedy through Instagram. I mean, that's the place to be. Today, yes.
Can you talk about flower essences and what's the difference between flower essences and homeopathy?
Okay, so the question was, what's the difference between flower essences and homeopathy? So Edward Bach was a homeopath. He was a classical homeopath. And real classical homeopathy, you really need a practitioner because we talked about, are we just guessing? It's a really well-educated guess. And when you take an hour and a half history with someone, there could be two remedies that are very similar and you have to decide what is the difference. So, excuse me, flower medicine was created for moms to cure their kids and neighbors to cure their friends and bubbies to cure their children, because the flower essences will not hurt you if it's the wrong remedy. I don't believe homeopathy will either, but homeopathy is a little more powerful. And it's very funny because I have a whole lecture, which we can do down the line, called Flower Power. We should do it down the line, where we talk about all the different flower herbs that are available. And flowers bring joy to the heart. Clinical studies show that no matter whether it's male or female, no matter what religion you are, no matter what socioeconomic class you are, when someone hands you flowers, you naturally feel good, even if you're in a bad mood. It's just, that's why you put flowers on a Shabbos table, because you could be yelling at your kids. You could have burnt your hand taking the challah out. A million things could have happened. Someone could have smushed your cake. And you have flowers on the table, and it's a way to meditate, and it makes you feel good. So Bach made these flower essences. Originally, they were mostly flowers. Now they have other ones, because he felt that if you ingested them, it could help balance your emotions. But I don't think it's as powerful. I mean, we're going to get emails now, but from my training of all my teachers, it's not as powerful as homeopathy in its ability to make change stick. Like, I don't know that a flower essence combination would allow that woman, that story, to quit her job, get a new yeshiva, and get a new apartment. I just haven't seen that with it. But it's a great addition. Yes. Yes, yeah.
So what's the difference in how it works between flower and homeopathy? Are they based on the same principles?
So with homeopathy, you succuss or shake it. So it's a very complicated thing, but you have, let's say, these flowers, and I would put water over it, and I would shake it, and then I would dilute it, and I would succuss it and shake it. And the more I dilute it and shake it, the stronger it gets. It's called a process of succussion, to get to basically bang the energy out of the plant. Think about what happens when you want to put a rocket in space, right? I don't know exactly how it does. We can call my son, but basically you have this rocket and you have these fires, boom, 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 boom underneath, and then all of a sudden it's whoo, goes up in the air. So that's what they're doing with homeopathy. So when it's diluted 200 times, it's stronger than when it's diluted 30 times. And they don't do that with flower essence. Right. And they're just kind of putting it in water and letting everything come out. It's very different. Yes. Good question. Yes.
There was a question about COVID.
Oh, you guys tell me if you want that topic. Whatever you want.
What's your story about getting it twice? What herbs did you recommend to speed up recovery and all that?
Okay. Do you guys mind COVID?
I mean, we're all here.
So I don't have a cure for COVID. There is no herbalist that has a cure for COVID. And there is no scientist in the world that has a cure for COVID. I believe from my research that it was developed in a lab. That's just my feeling and my research. You can prove me wrong. I don't know. Everybody responds very differently to COVID. You can have 6 people in a house and one can barely breathe and the other one will be fine. I used very strong herbal combinations, tinctures like this. And I found for me, but I'm over 50, let's be true confessions. Over 50 is a little bit more challenging with COVID than if you're in your teens, 20s, 30s, or 40s. And when you get to your 70s, COVID just doesn't like us very much, right? So I used herbs the most important things with COVID is you want to keep your blood thin because blood clots is a real problem 2 to 3 months after COVID. COVID does affect the heart and the rhythm of the heart. So you want herbs to support the heart. Our lungs, we know we don't want scarring, and you can get scarring inside the lungs. Spleen, I had a swollen spleen afterwards. And those are the things that we were really focusing in on. So the herbs I used an herb called andrographis. You can ask me to spell it. I don't know, andrographis with a PH. It's an antiviral herb, and I felt that that was very important for COVID. I used an herb called cleavers, which was for lymphatic drainage. I used an herb called thyme, the spice thyme, but in the plant, because it's good essential oils for the lungs. I used an herb called elecampane, which expectorates any mucus that can be in the lungs. I used a lot of medicinal mushrooms. I used an herb called reishi, which is an immunomodulator. And I used an herb called chaga, which I actually brought to share with you. Medicinal mushrooms were very important, in my opinion, with COVID. I worked with hundreds and hundreds of COVID clients. None of my clients ended up in the hospital from the ages of 8 to 85. I can't say that I saved them, but I believe that the herbs kept them out of the hospital. I'm not saying that they weren't sick for weeks and weeks. So I believe that herbal medicine is one of the only things that we have to help keep people off of respirators when their breathing gets bad. So that's what I did. I want to tell you one miracle story. Yes, before I show you chaga mushroom. Yes, your question. I think that it's not true. Most of the frankincense on the market is not original frankincense. It's very hard to find good frankincense. It's got a lot of, it's a resin. It was used in the Beis Hamikdash. It's a beautiful resin that you can burn and breathe in, very relaxing, but I don't believe it was the cure. But I want to tell you this before I show you chaga, since we're up on, it says that Hashem put the refuah in the world before the illness, right? So we have to believe, even with COVID, that there's a refuah here somewhere, even if it's man-made, right? So I had COVID in March and hit me hard, and I exercise, deep breathe, meditate, eat healthy food. I'm an herbalist, and it still hit me hard. My blood type, who I am, my age, I don't know. So after COVID, I felt like I really had to get my lungs functioning again. I needed my lungs to work. And so what I did was I started walking around Crown Heights. And I wish I brought it with me. It's not even growing now. There's an herb called cleavers. I've lived in Crown Heights for 35 years. And you see a little cleavers over here, a little cleavers over here. We must do a weed walk, please, for sure. Yeah, in the spring, we need to just.
We were planning on it last year, but then COVID hit.
Yeah,
so.
we're going to, for those of you that are in the Brooklyn area, when spring hits, we're going to do a weed walk, where we're going to walk around Crown Heights and identify, touch and smell all the medicinal plants. So I'm out here walking. I see the biggest patch of cleavers. Yeah, there was a big patch of COVID I had ever seen in my life. Never saw it in Brooklyn before. I went to my little track where I go. Well, I don't really run. I kind of speed walk. All over was cleavers. I never in 35 years saw more cleavers. It was on people's lawns. It was in their backyards. So I was like, oh my gosh, cleavers has to be part of the refuah. And I have to tell you, it's for the lymphatics. So when you breathe in COVID, because it is airborne, goes in your nose, in your mouth. And there was a big thing on the internet that you could drink hot drinks so that it pushes through your body. I don't know if that worked, but you have to get rid of the virus through your lymphatic system. So I don't make medicine in Brooklyn because, a little pollution here, but I gathered all this cleavers in my house. I just started picking it. I had a big bag in my pockets, laid it on my Shabbos table. I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I'm not going to give it to a medicine from Brooklyn. And I made it into a oil. I figured topically it's fine. And I have to tell you what I'm using it for with kids and myself. I woke up one morning, I had some dental work, and I had this big swollen gland, like, oh, really? What's it from? And I put cleavers oil, and within 48 hours, it was gone. So cleavers can help the lymphatic system. So that was the most amazing thing I ever saw. I'm curious to see this March, how much cleavers, but I wanted to show you this because this was sent to me by these guys called the Birch Boys. The Birch Boys I met on Instagram. And they're guys that live in upstate New York, and all they do is climb trees and get mushrooms. So I was like, I mean, I reached out to them. I was like, you crazy guys, what are you doing climbing? So here, why don't you take and pass around? This is one of the top medicinal, here, take another one, medicinal mushrooms called chaga. Chaga helps stimulate the immune system. It's a big, ugly mushroom like this big that grows on a tree. They say it has anti-tumor properties. It's given for anti-tumor properties, tumor growths. It's used in cancer protocol, although I don't believe we can cure cancer with herbs either. And it's the most interesting mushroom I've ever seen. And they take this, you boil it down to get it soft, then you put it in grain alcohol, you let it sit for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you get a tincture, or they broke it down and made it into a tea. I thought it was amazing. So that's a medicinal mushroom that I wanted to introduce you to. Isn't that fascinating? Any other questions? Thanks so much.
Yes, there was a question about.
Thank you so much.
There was a question about cleaver herbs safe for kids.
Absolutely. Cleavers is one of the safest herbs for kids. We use it for kids with chronic strep throat, chronic ear infections, and chronic allergies. Cleaver is used.
The person who asked the question just wrote, my son has had swollen lymph nodes for years.
Yeah, so cleavers internally would be something that, I mean, I can't diagnose through Zoom or Facebook Live, whatever we're on. That would be one in the protocol. There's also another herb called violet. In the spring, we get these little violet flowers, and violet is also gentle for kids and used for lymphs. And see if she can find cleaver's oil to begin with. And I would put it on the glands every night before they go to bed, because they need to be, the tissue needs to be relaxed a little bit, broken down, so the lymphs can take it out of the system.
Wow. And then where can they find out more about what you have this, like your treatment or whatnot for COVID?
I guess they can email me and I can send them a list of what I'm using. I mean, again, I can't diagnose it through email. That's really important to know. And I don't think I have a cure for it. I have to say that I haven't posted much on my website because you can get in trouble for false advertising. But on my Instagram videos, I have about 10 of them where I talk about suggestions for during COVID. So it's really tricky. It's really, really tricky. Herbalist, just to let people know, once a month, I meet with other master herbalists on Zoom, and we all talk about what we're doing with COVID. And I was part of a lot of international herbal groups that were talking about what they were doing in India for COVID, what they were doing in China for COVID. So I could get a broader view on how other people are treating it. And she just went in the bathroom, but frankincense wasn't holding up the way we all got WhatsApp messages about it, but it wasn't holding up as the treatment that they wanted it to be.
Oh, wow. Okay. There was a question if you could suggest homeopaths in Crown Heights, or that's
Me. Can we suggest homeopaths in Crown Heights? Here she is.
There you go.
I think I'm the only classically trained homeopath in Crown Heights.
Yes.
I don't think there's any.
Well, when someone goes to you, they also do both. Like,
Depends on what they need.
Right, I'm saying it's like you base it on what they need.
So if someone comes to me and says, Sara Chana, I would like what is called a constitutional remedy. I'll explain it very quickly. I know it's a lot of information. So a constitutional remedy is how you present yourself to the world and what your personal challenges are, as opposed to apis is for a bug bite, arnica is if you hurt your finger. And it can take a couple visits to get it. When you get a good homeopathic remedy, you feel it. You feel like something shifts. And honestly, I only got my homeopathic remedy about 5 years ago, and I've been a homeopath for 28 years. I finally found a homeopath that got me a good remedy. So sometimes it can, I mean, I've had remedies that have helped with strep throat. I mean, I've been through every pandemic. When everyone had whooping cough, I got whooping cough, even as an herbalist. I'm an AD, we know that. Everyone got chicken pox, I got shingles. So I've experienced a lot of things, and the acute remedies help me a lot. A lot. Yes.
Well, I'm saying when someone comes, like, why would you prescribe them homeopathy versus herb? Like, what would it be based on?
Okay, so the question was, when would I prescribe homeopathy and when would I prescribe herbs? I'm not allowed to prescribe in the state of New York. I can suggest. Sometimes remedies will jump out at me and I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman's a calc carb. Calc carb people are, they like to stay home. They have a lot of anxiety and panic. They sweat very easily. They can have a lot of skin conditions. Very, very sweet, loving people. So if I spend an hour and a half with someone and a homeopathic remedy jumps out at me, I'm going to suggest it. If a woman says, Sara Chana, I don't want herbs, I want only homeopathy, then I'm going to spend that whole hour and a half working on it. But if they come in and say, my periods are all over the place, Sara Chana. It's 22 days, it's 45 days, it lasts for 2 days, it lasts for 15 days. I need to get my period in order. Then I would see which they're going to be more compliant with and which is going to work best for them. Everybody's an individual. Yes, next question.
Is homeopathy safe to bring on labor?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's going to per se bring on labor. You can use homeopathy during labor. The question was, is homeopathy safe for labor? I think that herbs are going to work better. There's a Chinese technique called moxa, where you burn a plant called mugwort on the pinky toes, and that can help bring on labor or turn a baby. Acupuncture is very good to bring on labor if you really need to go into labor. I mean, I like Hashem to bring it on, but that would be a time where I would use herbs or acupuncture over homeopathy.
Okay. And then I think
for turning your baby?
Moxa. I didn't bring it with me. I don't think I have moxa here. Moxa is, did I bring it? Moxa is, acupuncturists use it. It's a long, okay. I have something like moxa. I did bring. Yeah. Well, this is not moxa. I mean, I brought so many things to talk about, but it's like, oh my God, the time goes so fast. This is not moxa, but it's similar to moxa, where they take plants and they bind them together. They use the herb called mugwort. And what they do is they actually burn it, and then they put the heat by your pinky toes, and it can flip babies. It really can. It's unbelievable. That's the first thing I try because it's easy. Must we stop? Yes.
Yeah, the phone's button.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so there
Anything else?
One more question. I guess I gave your website where they can follow you.
Did I say that already?
Yes.
Okay, good. SaraChana's at Gmail.
And there was a question about where can they watch and rewatch this recording. So
Go ahead, come over here.
That answer is, you can search Living Chassidus on YouTube, and you can search Living Chassidus on any of the podcasting platforms, and you'll find this recording and many others. And I want to say a huge thank you to Sara Chana. We love you. Thank you for being back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you.